Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles. I met Jacqueline almost exactly 2 years ago at the weirdest possible moment. I was grabbing some groceries at Trader Joe's when I heard this store manager absolutely laying into some woman about parking in the wrong spot or something. The manager was being such a jerk, red-faced, pointing, making a whole scene in front of everyone. The woman, Jacqueline, just stood there looking mortified. I don't even know what came over me, but I stepped in and said something like, "The parking signs are kind of confusing. Maybe we could all just take a breath." The manager glared at me, but eventually backed off. Jacqueline looked so relieved. As we were both checking out, she asked if she could buy me a coffee to say thanks. We clicked right away. She was witty, graceful, had this slightly crooked smile that absolutely wrecked me in a good way. She listened when I talked, or at least seemed to remembered little things I mentioned and texted me good morning every single day. By our third date, I was already falling pretty hard. My parents, especially my mom, were always super supportive of me. They helped me get an apartment after college while I was still figuring things out career-wise. Mom also helped with my car payments and a few other expenses. I always felt a little guilty, but they insisted they wanted to help while I found my footing. Jacqueline moved in with me about 8 months into our relationship. It felt quick, but her roommate situation had fallen apart and it just made sense. My parents were cautiously optimistic. My mom liked her right away. My dad took a bit longer to warm up, but eventually he came around. They even went to yoga together a few times, which for mom is basically the ultimate seal of approval. Everything felt perfect until it didn't. About 6 months ago, Jacqueline's parents started coming around more often. They lived about an hour away and would drop by for dinner or Sunday brunch. Her father, Lawrence, was always complimenting the apartment, whatever. Her mother, Janice, was quieter, polite enough. They were fine, I guess, but something about them always felt a little off, like they were putting on a show instead of just being real. During one of these visits, Lawrence got stare-eyed looking around my living room and said something like, "You have such a warm atmosphere here. It's been so long since we felt like a family." Janice nodded, adding that their Jacqueline was just golden and that they hoped we'd stay together a long time. It felt weirdly intense, but I smiled and thanked them. Looking back, there were signs I missed. Little comments Jacqueline would make about my mom's generosity or jokes about how she'd hit the jackpot with me, the way she'd text her parents right after we got anything new for the apartment, how she never really seemed to be looking for better work opportunities. Even though she constantly talked about her big plans, I started noticing patterns. Whenever we were around my parents and the topic of money or careers came up, Jacqueline would either go quiet or try to steer the conversation elsewhere. If my mom brought up her business, Jacqueline would suddenly act fascinated, asking detailed questions and really tuning in. But later, when we were alone, she'd throw in little jabs about my mom being old money or stuck in her ways. One night, we were scrolling through Instagram together, and she saw a photo of her ex. She muttered something about how he had the looks, but not the stability. When I asked what that meant, she just kissed my forehead and said, I was the whole package. I remember feeling off about it, so I started paying more attention. I noticed she was on her phone a lot, smiling at messages, but always flipping it face down if I came near. One time, I caught a glimpse of a text. She was telling someone that things were looking up financially. When I asked about it, she said it was just her friend talking about a new job. I wanted to believe her. Three times, I overheard her on the phone with her dad saying things like, "It's comfortable," or "I'm just holding on for now." Every time she noticed me nearby, she'd switch gears, suddenly talking loudly about weekend plans or what we should have for dinner. After the third time, I started recording random phone conversations. I know it sounds completely nuts, invasive, even, but something deep down felt wrong, and I needed to know if I was just being paranoid or if my gut was actually trying to tell me something. Mostly the recordings were harmless, just normal conversations about shows, friends, plans. But then came the dinner at Jacqueline's parents' house. They'd invited us over for this really fancy meal. Steaks, salads, wine, the whole thing. Lawrence kept touching my arm, telling me how happy they were that Jacqueline had found someone so steady and supportive. Janice started asking more questions about my mom's business, which felt odd considering they'd already met her several times. After dinner, I offered to slice the pie Lawrence had baked. I went to the kitchen, but before leaving the table, I started the voice memo recorder on my phone. I just needed to know. The kitchen and dining room were separated by a half wall so I could hear them, but they couldn't see me. I stood there slicing the pie when I heard Jacqueline laugh. That same laugh she used when she was trying to charm someone. Her voice dropped lower, but I could still make out every word. He's convenient. His mom's money keeps me comfortable, while I figure things out. My hands froze on the knife. I might have stopped breathing. Then she went on, "I'll stick around long enough to squeeze what I can out of him, then I'll find someone actually worth showing off." I heard Janice snort, like she was amused. Then Lawrence's voice, quieter but still clear, "Just don't get pregnant with that loser's child." Jacqueline again. God, no. Can you imagine being tied to that family forever? His mom's an arrogant old goat. If it weren't for the money, I wouldn't even say hello to her. I stood there holding the knife, my whole body burning. I wanted to scream, or storm out or shatter something across the floor. But instead, I just kept slicing the pie, triangle after perfect triangle. I don't even remember thinking, I just did it. I walked back into the dining room, plates in hand, and smiled. I set the pie down, served each of them a slice, and sat back in my chair. I didn't flinch. I just smiled and asked Lawrence about his garden. The rest of the night is a blur. I remember laughing at their jokes, helping clean up, kissing Jacqueline. In the car, on the way home. I remember grabbing my phone from the table before we left. I remember opening the door to our apartment, the one my mom was paying for, and watching Jacqueline kick off her shoes and flop onto the couch like nothing had happened, because for her nothing had. I didn't confront her that night or the next day or the one after that. I just watched how she'd check my mom's social media when she thought I wasn't looking. Noticed how she'd suggest visiting my parents when our fridge was running low. Saw how she'd casually bring up her student loans when my mom was in the room. A week went by, I barely slept. I kept replaying that recording, hoping maybe I'd misheard. Maybe I was being paranoid. But no, her words were clear as day. He's convenient. His mom's money keeps me comfortable while I figure things out. I'll find someone worth showing off. Jacqueline noticed something was off, but instead of being worried, she seemed annoyed. She kept asking if I was just moody or if I was being dramatic. It was my dad who finally got through to me. He dropped by unannounced one afternoon while Jacqueline was out with friends. He took one look at me and led me the kitchen table. "What's going on with you and Jacqueline?" he asked, eyes locked onto mine. "Is she treating you right?" I wasn't. Crying. I was past crying. I just felt empty, I said. "Do you want to hear it?" "Yes," Dad said. "Of course. Just don't interrupt." Okay. I pulled out my phone, opened the voice memo app, and hit play. We sat in silence as Jacqueline's voice filled the kitchen. "He's convenient. His mom's money keeps me comfortable." Dad's face went completely still. "Cowboys." The time she got to arrogant old goat, he was trembling. When it ended, he didn't say a word for what felt like forever. Then he stood up, walked to the hallway, and grabbed his coat. "Don't let her come back here tonight," he said. "Where are you going?" I asked to your mother. "Wait here." I sat alone in the kitchen after he left. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from Jacqueline. "Grabbing drinks with the girls. Back late. Don't wait up." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and started making a list. Then, my parents showed up. I've never seen my mom that quiet before. She's usually the one filling the room, chatting, cracking jokes, asking a million questions. But when she walked through the door that night, she just gave me a nod. Dad was right behind her, his hand resting gently on her back like he was studying her. Dad told her I had something she needed to hear. I felt my stomach twist as I pulled out my phone again. Part of me wanted to back out, to say, never mind, to pretend everything was fine because hitting play meant the truth would be out there and nothing could go back to the way it was. But I played it anyway. Watching my mom listen to Jacqueline's voice was, I don't even know how to describe it. At first, her expression didn't change. She just stared at my phone sitting on the table, listening to Jacqueline laugh about how I was convenient. When Jacqueline called her an arrogant old goat, I saw something flicker behind her eyes. Mom didn't explode, not like I expected. She just sat there for a long moment after the recording ended. Then she reached across the table and took my hand. She didn't. I'd been so focused on the betrayal, on what I should do next, that I hadn't even stopped to think about whether I was okay. I wasn't. Dad went and made tea. His solution to everything always has been. Mom asked when I'd recorded it. I told her. It had been a week. She nodded like that made sense. Then she asked where Jacqueline was now. I checked my phone. 3 more texts from her. Getting another round. Jess says, "Hi. Don't wait up, babe." So normal. So completely oblivious. I told. Mom, Jacqueline was out drinking with friends and wouldn't be back for hours. That's when her energy shifted. She straightened in her chair and asked, "Do you still have your laptop?" I grabbed it from the couch. It was still open with my half-finished what-to-do list on the screen. She glanced at it and smiled just a little. Turns out we've been thinking the same thing. We spent the next 2 hours making a plan, not just reacting, not just rage or heartbreak, concrete steps, a way forward. Mom was methodical, making her own list in the Notes app on her phone. It was kind of surreal. I'd expected anger, shouting, maybe, but instead got this calm, laser-focused, problem-solving energy that was somehow more intense than any yelling could have been. First on the list, the apartment. Mom had co-signed the lease and had been covering the rent. She called the property management company right there at my kitchen table, explained that she needed to terminate the current lease and sign a new one under my name only. The leasing agent tried to mention the usual fees and paperwork, but Mom cut her off. "I'll pay whatever fees are necessary," she said firmly. "I need this done immediately." When the agent hesitated, she added that she could come by the office first thing in the morning, if it would help speed things up. Suddenly, the agent became a lot more helpful. Next, the car. Jacqueline had been driving my car, which Mom had helped me pay for. So, she made another call, this time to our insurance agent. She had Jacqueline removed from my policy effective immediately, then opened her Progressive app and changed the payment info so it would come from my account instead of hers. She said she'd still help me with the cost if I needed it, but the account needed to be in my name now. Clean lines. While Mom handled the financial stuff, Dad helped me go through the apartment, making a list of everything that belonged to Jacqueline. It wasn't much. Some clothes, her makeup and toiletries, her gaming laptop. Most of the furniture and kitchen stuff were mine or had been bought with money from my parents. Then I remembered something else. Jacqueline's brother, Carlos, worked for my mom's company. He'd been hired about 6 months ago, right after Jacqueline casually mentioned to Mom that her brother was looking for a new job. Mom had interviewed him more as a favor to me than anything and offered him a position. I hesitated to bring it up. It felt small, petty even, but Dad noticed me typing and deleting something over and over on my laptop. When I finally said it, out loud, Mom's expression changed. Her face went tight and she picked up her phone again. She didn't fire Carlos on the spot. Mom's not like that. But she did send an email to HR asking them to include Carlos's role in an upcoming department restructuring review. She made it clear that while she wasn't advocating for his termination without cause, his position should be considered non-essential if cuts were necessary. Sounds cold when I write it out, but honestly, Carlos had been skating by on his connection to me and Mom. He was constantly late, took long lunches, and was average at best. The only reason he hadn't already been put on a performance plan was because of Jacqueline. Around midnight, we got to the final item on the list: the confrontation. Mom wanted to call Jacqueline's parents that night, but Dad gently suggested waiting until morning. I agreed. I was completely drained, and we all needed to be clear-headed for that conversation. Mom reluctantly agreed to wait until morning, but insisted on staying the night. Dad went home to grab them overnight bags, while Mom helped me change the locks. Thankfully, our building uses electronic keypad locks, so we just had to reset the code through the apartment's app. I felt a weight lift as we deleted Jacqueline's access. That night, I slept on the couch and gave my parents the bedroom. I couldn't bring myself to sleep in the bed Jacqueline and I had shared. Around 3 a.m., my phone started blowing up with texts. The code isn't working. Nick, are you kidding me right now? Let me in. It's freezing. Nick, answer your phone. I put my phone on silent and flipped it face down on the coffee table. For the first time in a week, I slept deeply. In the morning, Mom made pancakes like it was just any regular Saturday. We sat at the kitchen table talking about the weather, checking our phones. It felt surreal, like we were pretending things were normal. Jacqueline had finally stopped texting around 5 a.m. My guess, she crashed at some friend's place. Around 10 a.m., Mom said it was time to call Jacqueline's parents. My stomach tightened again. Dad squeezed my shoulder and reminded me, "You didn't do anything wrong. You don't have anything to be ashamed of." Mom set her phone up for a FaceTime call. After 3 rings, Lawrence's face appeared on the screen. He looked confused for a second, then put on a forced smile when he saw us. I caught a glimpse of Janice in the background, flipping through a magazine. Lawrence greeted us with an upbeat hey until he saw our expressions. He called Janice over, his smile starting to fade. She joined him, frowning faintly. Mom didn't waste time with small talk. She asked calmly, "Would you like to hear something interesting?" Then she hit play. We all watched their faces as they listened to the recording, their own voices. Janice's hand flew to her mouth. Lawrence's frown deepened, but neither of them looked surprised by what Jacqueline had said, only that they'd been caught saying it. When the audio ended, Janice was the first to speak, already making excuses. "It was just talk," she said quickly. Jacqueline didn't mean any of it. They were just joking around. Lawrence tried to look stern and disappointed like he was hearing it for the first time, too. Mom let them ramble for about 30 seconds, then cut in calm but firm. She explained everything clearly. Jacqueline was being removed from the apartment lease. She no longer had access to my car. All financial support was ending immediately, and Carlos's position at the company was under review. Janice's face crumpled. She turned her pleading eyes on me, voice cracking. "Don't you know how much Jacqueline loves you? Weren't you planning a future together? Everyone says things they don't mean sometimes." I just stared back at her, quiet. The man who had smiled to my face while mocking me behind my back, who had told his daughter not to let me get her pregnant because it would tie her to my family, who had sat at my table, eaten my food while thinking I wasn't good enough for his daughter. Dad leaned into the frame then and told Lawrence to shut his mouth. No one was smiling now. She said goodbye, and Mom ended the call before they could respond. The 3 of us sat in silence for a moment. Then Mom's phone buzzed. A text from Jacqueline. "Where are you? Why can't I get into the apartment? What the hell is going on?" Mom typed out a reply, showed it to me for approval, then hit send. "Nick knows everything. Your things will be packed and left with the building manager. Do not contact him again." We spent the next few hours boxing up Jacqueline's stuff. It felt strange touching her things with the weight of what I knew now. Her favorite hoodie that she used to wear around the house, the coffee mug I'd given her last Christmas, the framed photo of us from last summer's trip to the lake. All of it felt tainted somehow. Dad and I had just sealed the last box when we heard yelling outside. I looked out the second-story window and saw Jacqueline on the front steps, slamming the buzzer for my apartment again and again. She looked like hell, wrinkled clothes, messy hair, face red with anger or booze or both. Mom joined me at the window, looked down. When Jacqueline saw her, she started yelling louder. "Why do you have to lock me out? This is my home, too." Mom just shook her head and pulled the blinds shut. The buzzing went on for nearly 20 minutes. Then it stopped. I peeked again and saw her sitting on the steps, head in her hands, and part of me, a small stupid part, actually felt sorry for her. But then I remembered, he's convenient. His dad's money keeps me comfortable. I'll find someone worth showing off. Around 4:00 p.m., Mom loaded the boxes into her trunk and drove them to the building manager's office, just like we'd arranged. Dad and I stayed in the apartment, flinching at every sound. We ordered pizza for dinner but barely touched it. The reality had finally landed. 2 years of my life had been a lie. Just after 8:00 p.m., the buzzer rang again. I pulled up the security feed on my phone. Jacqueline was back, looking even worse than before. This time I answered the intercom. Her voice was slurred as she pleaded to come up. She said we needed to talk, that it was all a misunderstanding. When I didn't say anything right away, she got aggressive. Do you really trust your parents more than me? Are you seriously throwing away 2 years over one dumb conversation? What are you now, your daddy's little boy? I took a deep breath. Then I told her. She called me convenient. She'd admitted she was using me. She planned to find someone better to show off, and she laughed about it with her parents. There was a long pause, then her tone shifted. Suddenly she sounded sober, cold, calculated. "Were you recording me?" she asked. "You know that's illegal in this state without consent, right? You could get in trouble for that." Mom took the phone from me. Then she told Jacqueline in a calm but firm voice that if she didn't leave immediately, we would call the police, that we had security footage of her harassing me, that she had exactly 10 minutes to get off the property. Jacqueline started yelling again, but Mom ended the call. Dad called building security while Mom and I watched the camera feed. After a few minutes, 2 security guards approached Jacqueline. There was some arguing, some wild hand gestures, but eventually they escorted her off the property. That night, we jumped at every sound. Mom slept on the couch. Dad stayed in my room with me. I kept checking the camera feed, half expecting to see Jacqueline trying to sneak back in, but the night passed quietly. In the morning, we finalized the new lease at the property management office. I updated the car insurance, secured my bank accounts, changed all my passwords. I even removed Jacqueline from my Netflix, Spotify, and Amazon accounts. It was like erasing her from my digital life, one login at a time. The property manager confirmed that Jacqueline had picked up her boxes. The security team had been formally instructed not to allow her into the building without my explicit permission. My parents helped me rearrange the furniture, like changing the layout might help erase her memory from the space. They stayed one more night before heading back home. Dad hugged me for a long time at the door. Mom looked like she wanted to say something meaningful, something lasting, but in the end just kissed my forehead and told me to call any time, day or night. And then they were gone, and I was alone, really alone. For the first time in nearly 2 years, the apartment felt too big, too quiet. I wandered from room to room, touching things, trying to reclaim the space for myself. I ordered takeout and ate it on the living room floor because sitting at the kitchen table felt too normal, too much like life with her. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "This isn't over. You've made a huge mistake." I knew it was Jacqueline. I didn't reply. I blocked the number and powered off my phone. I lay awake until dawn, listening for footsteps that never came. The endless texts from unknown numbers, the voicemails, the Instagram DMs from obviously fake accounts. It's like being haunted by a ghost that refuses to move on. This morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from different numbers between 2:00 a.m. and 6:10 a.m. I've blocked so many numbers that my blocked list is longer than my contact list now. Jacqueline clearly keeps using burner number apps or borrowing phones from friends. At first, I listened to the voicemails, thinking maybe she would apologize in a way that felt real. But they just kept getting worse. The first few were what you'd expect. She was sorry. She didn't mean it. She was just trying to impress her parents, blah blah blah. Then they started getting angry. How could I do this to her? Did I know how much this was hurting her? By day 4, they turned manipulative. Remember that time I took care of you when you were sick? Remember our trip to the mountains? Now the messages bounce between threatening and pathetically sad. Yesterday's gym. She's ruined her life. Her brother lost his job because of me. Her parents are ashamed of her. She's practically homeless. Then, not even 20 minutes later, she misses me so much she can't sleep. She just wants to talk. What's weirder is that I still catch myself almost responding. My thumb will hover over the keyboard, and I'll have to physically put the phone down. 2 years is a long time. You know, sometimes I miss the version of her I thought I knew, the one I fell for before I knew the truth, but then I play the recording again. His mom's money keeps me comfortable while I figure things out. I'll stick around long enough to squeeze what I can out of him. Then I'll find someone actually worth showing off. Just don't get pregnant with that loser's child. My friend Josh came over yesterday. He's been checking on me every few days, and honestly, I appreciate that more than I can say. We were scrolling through TikTok on the couch when my phone buzzed with a text from another unknown number. I ignored it, but he asked what was going on. I hadn't told any of our mutual friends the full story yet, just that Jacqueline and I broke up and it had been messy. But sitting there with Josh, I decided to just play the recording for him. I watched his face shift as he listened. First confused, then shocked, and finally this cold, tight kind of anger I'd never seen from him before. When it ended, he was quiet for a long time. Then he told me something that made my stomach drop. Jacqueline had texted him 3 days ago asking if he'd seen me, saying she was worried because I was acting unstable and had made up some wild story about her. He'd kept his responses vague, not knowing what was going on. But now, he got it. He pulled out his phone and showed me the thread. It was worse than I thought. She told him I was having some kind of breakdown, that my parents were enabling it, that she was desperate to help but couldn't reach me. She even suggested they maybe staged some kind of intervention. I felt physically sick reading it. She was trying to gaslight my friends, make me look unhinged, like she was the victim. Josh immediately started messaging others in our group to warn them. While he was doing that, I checked my email and found messages from her going back several days. I'd been so focused on blocking her number I hadn't even thought to check email. Some of the messages had attachments, photos of us together, screenshots of old texts I'd sent her, even a video from last Christmas of me opening a watch she got me, smiling like an idiot. It felt like emotional blackmail, like she was saying, "Look how happy you were. Look what you're giving up." I deleted all of them and updated my email filters to send anything from her straight to the trash. That night after Josh left, I had trouble sleeping. Every noise made me jump. I kept checking to make sure the door was locked. Around 2 a.m., I started scrolling through old texts between us, looking for signs I'd missed. There were so many. Comments about my mom's company, questions about my trust fund, suggestions that I asked my parents for things she wanted. How had I been so blind? The next morning I woke up to knocking, not on my apartment door but my neighbor's. I peeked through the peephole and saw Jacqueline standing there. She looked surprisingly put together, wearing the blouse I'd gotten her for her birthday, holding 2 coffees and a bag from that bakery I love. My neighbor Renee opened her door looking confused. I couldn't hear everything, but Jacqueline was saying something about surprising me and how she forgot her key. Thankfully, Renee is naturally skeptical. She asked why Jacqueline didn't just call me. I heard Jacqueline stumble through something about wanting it to be a surprise. Renee told her she'd check with me first and close the door. A minute later, my phone buzzed with a text from Renee asking if she should let someone named Jacqueline in. I shot back a quick absolutely not with a short explanation that we'd broken up and she wasn't welcome. Renee replied with a thumbs up. I watched through the peephole as Renee stepped back out and firmly told Jacqueline I didn't want to see her. Jacqueline's face changed instantly. That fake pleasant smile disappeared. She tried to argue, her voice rising. Renee, who's 5'11" in NCAA wrestler, works out like a maniac and takes zero crap, just crossed her arms and stared Jacqueline down until she finally gave up and left. I texted Renee a thank you with about 15 exclamation points. She replied that Jacqueline gave her bad vibes and to let her know if I needed anything. Note 2. Self. Bake Renee some cookies. That afternoon, I was on a Zoom call for work when my buzzer rang. The building has a camera system, so I checked the feed on my phone and there was Lawrence, Jacqueline's dad, standing there holding what looked like a gift basket. I ignored it. 5 minutes later, it rang again and again and again. Eventually, I pressed the talk button and asked what he wanted. He sounded nauseatingly friendly, saying he just wanted to talk. Man-to man that there had been a terrible misunderstanding, that Jacqueline was devastated. Couldn't I just give her a chance to explain? I told him I'd heard everything I needed to hear on the recording. That's when he dropped the act. His voice turned hard as he asked if I understood that recording someone without consent was illegal in our state, that they could press charges if they wanted to. I almost laughed. I told him to go ahead and try. The recording was made in their home during a dinner they invited me to. I hadn't shared it publicly or used it as blackmail. I played it for my parents and a couple close friends to explain why I ended things. Then I hung up. I watched through the feed as he stood there awkwardly for another 10 minutes before finally leaving the gift basket by the door and walking away. The building manager texted me later to say they'd removed an abandoned package from my doorway. I thanked him and asked him to just throw it out. That evening, my mom called to check in. She tries to sound casual, but I can tell she's worried. She mentioned that Jacqueline had shown up at her office that day, asking to speak with her. Security had to escort her out, but not before she caused a scene in the lobby, shouting that my mom had ruined her life and turned me against her. I felt awful. Now, this was affecting my mom's business, but she assured me it wasn't a big deal, that security had handled it and I shouldn't worry. Still, I could hear the tension in her voice. This was escalating in ways none of us had expected. The next day, Saturday, I decided to get out of the apartment. I'd been hiding inside for days and desperately needed fresh air. I went to this small coffee shop a few blocks away, found a corner table, and just sat with my book trying to feel normal for an hour. I was halfway through my latte when I got that feeling. You know the one, like someone's watching you. I looked up and saw Carlos, Jacqueline's brother, standing by the counter staring at me. Our eyes met, and for a second, I thought he might come over and start something, but instead, he just gave me this cold, hard look and walked out. I stayed for another 15 minutes, but my hands were shaking so badly I couldn't even focus on the page. When I finally left, I took a different route home, constantly looking over my shoulder. It felt absurd, like I was the one in the wrong, but I still felt like I was the one who had to hide. When I got back to my apartment, my dad was waiting. In the lobby, he brought groceries and dinner, saying he just wanted to check on me in person. We spent the evening watching Netflix, not mentioning Jacqueline once, which was exactly what I needed. He stayed over, sleeping on the couch. Around midnight, my phone started going off again. More unknown numbers, more texts swinging wildly between desperate apologies and bitter anger. I silenced it and tried to sleep. In the morning, Dad and I were having coffee when someone started pounding on my door. Not knocking, pounding like they were trying to break it down. I checked the peephole and saw Jacqueline, disheveled, angry. She was shouting my name, demanding I open the door, saying she knew I was in there. My dad immediately called building security while I stood frozen, watching her through the peephole. She started kicking the door. Each heavy thud made me jump. I finally found my voice and told her to leave, that security was on the way. She laughed, actually laughed, and said she just wanted to talk, that if I gave her 5 minutes, she could explain everything. I asked what there was to explain. Did she deny saying those things? There was a pause, then more pounding. She wasn't denying it. She was just angry she'd been caught. Security showed up a few minutes later. 2 guys who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. I could hear them telling Jacqueline she needed to leave. There was some scuffling in the hallway, voices raised. My dad and I stood in the kitchen, not speaking, just listening. Eventually, it went quiet. My phone buzzed. Security texted to say they'd removed her from the building and called the police because she'd gotten physical. Apparently, she'd shoved one of the guards, when they tried to escort her out. Dad and I just looked at each other. This was getting dangerous. He suggested I come stay with them for a while, but that felt like letting her win somehow. This was my home. I didn't want to be chased out of it. Instead, I finally did what I should have done days ago. I filed for a restraining order. The process was surprisingly straightforward. I had the recordings, the security footage from multiple incidents, the texts, emails, and witnesses. Dad stayed another night, and the next day, Mom came over to install one of those Ring doorbell cameras for extra security. They were both worried, and honestly, so was I. This wasn't the Jacqueline I thought I knew, or maybe it was and I'd just never seen it before. For days passed quietly, no texts, no calls, no unexpected visits. I started to relax a little, like maybe, just maybe, it was over. I went to work, stopped by the grocery store on the way home, normal everyday stuff. I even went out to dinner with Marcus and a few friends, though I was careful not to post anything online about where we were going. Then yesterday, I came home to find a manila envelope slipped under my door. No name, no address, just blank. Inside was a handwritten letter from Jacqueline, 12 pages long. She wrote about everything she claimed to love about me. Every memory she cherished, every plan she'd had for our future. But the last page, it was different. The handwriting turned messy, aggressive. She wrote that if she couldn't have me, she'd make sure no one would want me. That she had videos of me, things that would be embarrassing if they got out. That she knew things about my mom's business that could cause serious problems. I felt sick reading it. There weren't any compromising videos. We'd never made any, but the threat alone felt violating. And whatever she thought she knew about my mom's business was probably made up or completely misunderstood. Still, the fact that she'd resorted to threats. I called my mom, then I called the police. They took the letter as evidence of a restraining order violation. The officer who showed up seemed bored, like this was routine, but she took my statement and said they'd look into it. I wasn't feeling too confident. A lot happened around 3 a.m. I heard a noise coming from my balcony. My apartment's on the second floor, and the balcony connects to a fire escape. I froze, listening. Another sound, like someone testing the sliding door. I called 911, whispering into the phone. The dispatcher told me to lock myself in the bathroom while officers responded. I grabbed my phone and keys, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, and did what she said. Through the bathroom door, I heard my sliding door open, footsteps in my living room, someone calling my name softly. I don't remember much. After that, the police arrived fast. I heard shouting, a crash, furniture being knocked over. When they finally knocked on the bathroom door and said it was safe to come out, I was shaking so badly I could hardly stand. Jacqueline had been arrested for breaking and entering, violating the restraining order, and resisting arrest. The officers told me she seemed intoxicated and became combative when they tried to cuff her. She'd knocked over my coffee table, shattered the glass top, and broken several framed photos. I spent the rest of the night at my parents' house. In the morning, I got a call. Jacqueline had been released on bail. She was ordered to wear an ankle monitor and stay at least 500 ft away from me, my apartment, and my workplace. If she violated the terms, she'd be arrested again on the spot. After the call, I just sat in my old childhood bedroom and broke down. Not quite tears, ugly gasping sobs that left me wiped out. Dad came in and just held me while I cried. When I finally calmed down, he asked what I wanted to do next. Did I want to move? Press more charges? I didn't have any answers. Still don't. I'm writing this now from their guest room, surrounded by dusty baseball trophies and childhood stuffed animals. I feel like a scared little boy and an angry man who's had enough. The police called this afternoon. Jacqueline had removed her ankle monitor. She violated the terms of her release. They're looking for her, but so far, they haven't found her. They advised me to stay somewhere she wouldn't think to look just to be safe. So that's where I'm at right now. At my parents' house while the police search for my ex-girlfriend. The same woman who broke into my apartment after threatening to release fake videos of me, all because I figured out she was using me for my mom's money. I keep thinking about that moment in the kitchen, hearing her laugh about how convenient I was, how I just served dinner, smiled, and cleaned up like nothing was wrong. I wish I'd confronted her right then. I wish I'd thrown the dessert in her face and walked away. I wish I'd never met her at all, but it's too late for wishes now. Jacqueline was arrested again 3 days after she cut off her ankle monitor. She was found hiding out at a motel an hour outside the city, registered under a fake name. She dyed her hair and had a bag packed, cash, a burner phone, a fake ID. She was planning to run, but someone at the motel recognized her from the news, called it in. This time there was no chance of bail. The charges stacked up quickly: breaking and entering, violating a restraining order, resisting arrest, harassment, and now felony escape. The evidence was overwhelming: security footage, text messages, the letter, my sworn statements, and the fact that she tried to disappear. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison. I thought that would be the end of it, that I could finally breathe. It came out during the investigation that Jacqueline's parents had helped her run. Her father had rented the motel room using an alias. Her mother had withdrawn large sums of cash from 3 different banks the day before Jacqueline disappeared. They claimed they were just helping their daughter clear her head, but the prosecutor painted a very different picture. They were charged with aiding and abetting a fugitive. Both were convicted, 2 years in prison each. I didn't know how to feel about that at first. There's a part of me that still can't believe the woman I once loved would go this far, and that the people who raised her thought they were above the law too. But mostly, I feel relief. Not joy, not revenge, just the quiet settling of dust after a storm. The sense that maybe finally this chapter is closed. Now it's about rebuilding, finding myself again, sleeping through the night without flinching at shadows. I still carry the scars, emotional ones, but they're healing. And this time, I'm the one in control of what comes next. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.